Hello, everybody. Welcome to Conspiracy Codex. I'm Andrew Jones. I'll be your host. And today we're going to take a look at the recent claim that RFK Jr. and Trump came out with, saying that taking Tylenol while you're pregnant can lead to autism. It's a pretty big claim, and we're going to take a closer look at the science behind it, see if there's anything to it.
So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. So,
Unless medically necessary. You got that right. So what I'd like to do is take a look at a few bullet points. Where did the claim come from? Is there any evidence to support the claim? And then if there is evidence, is it substantiated with like scientific data? Are there any better alternatives? Is there any risk to not taking anything versus taking Tylenol or acetaminophen products? Is this some sort of a Big Pharma cover-up? And who actually makes acetaminophen? I'm curious if it's the same company that makes that chemical. You know, that the claim is that acetaminophen, the popular brand is Tylenol, but acetaminophen is found in all kinds of generic versions of Tylenol. So I'm curious if it's the same chemical in name brand, or is there different variations of it? Is the issue with Tylenol, or is the issue with acetaminophen? So that's kind of a big one for me. And then what are some examples of some other drugs in history that have been thought to be okay to take? They were prescribed for years and years, and then eventually taken off the shelf after a long-term use, and after realizing that it causes bad effects or something. So those are the things I'm going to be taking a look at. Stick with me and we'll get to it. So where did the claim come from? What prompted RFK Jr. and Trump to announce in a press conference September 22nd, 2025, that there's a link between Tylenol or acetaminophen use and autism when a pregnant mother takes it? So probably the best way is just to point to the studies that were done. Looks like there's a publication by Johns Hopkins and Boston University in 2019 with an even later analysis. The study was called Boston Birth Cohort, and the key findings were consistent links between maternal acetaminophen use in pregnancy and higher ASD risk, that's autism in children. Analyzed biomarkers in cord blood from about 1,000 mothers and infant pairs. The original focus was on ADHD, but extended to ASD in follow-ups. Association that was observed, but not proven causal. So I know there's, just from the research I've done here, there's a lot of debate on causation. It's kind of a highly debated topic because there's could be some underlying health issues that necessitated the use for acetaminophen products, which themselves could have caused issues with causing autism or ADHD at birth. So it's hard to completely attribute causation to the drug when there could have been some underlying issues as well. So kind of keep that in mind. But there's some other studies. So there's another one conducted by Yale Columbia, and Harvard. It's an ongoing study with 2025 updates. The name of the study, Nurses Health Study 2, and among about 9,000 children and parental exposure tied to elevated neurodevelopmental disorder rates, including ASD. There's some notes here. Long perspective cohort reports association, but experts note confounding factors like underlying illness prompting acetaminophen use. So there again, yes, there's a link to specific parents and children, but if the parent was taking Tylenol or acetaminophen product, there could have been an underlying issue that also helped cause the ASD or ADHD. There's another one here for Incan School of Medicine at Mount Sinai and Harvard. This is a study done in August of 2025. Meta-analysis of existing literature found overwhelming evidence of links to ASD and ADHD. Quoted Harvard School of Public Health Dean on potential causality via disrupted brain development. Example: oxidative stress mechanisms. And the notes here on that one: most recent trigger, published just weeks before the announcement. Supports prior data, but calls for more research, not definitive proof. The name of that study was Mount Sinai Review. So again, lots of reputable organizations have been looking into this. They're finding links to, possibilities, but there's also caution to link it directly because there could be some other stuff going on. And it looks like also there's some other studies that Johns Hopkins is doing, suggesting that acetaminophen may prolong fevers rather than resolve them, implying it could worsen inflammatory problems, which leads to issues with neurodevelopment. So, and then another thing, I don't have it up in front of me here, but something I was reading through earlier, some of the issues that do, I guess, correlate directly to acetaminophen is the observed effects of it. Kind of by definition, it causes some inflammation in brain development tissues. So that's kind of where there could be maybe a direct link. But anyway, so I'll move on here. So topic number 2. Is there any substantiated studies that have been peer-reviewed and without a shadow of a doubt say or claim that acetaminophen products are directly related to autism in unborn children? Everything I've found says that there could be associations, but causation can't be determined. And I also consulted the AI tools like ChatGPT and Grok. They all say the same thing. They point to countless studies. I'm talking, if you really go through it, there's probably 20 plus studies that all pretty much have the same result. Different amounts of participants and different specific tissues, and the data collection is different in many of the studies, and the results show that there is something to question. There's some association by as much as like 1.5% or so that maybe there's a relationship between acetaminophen products and autism, but none of them make the claim that it's like definitive, So while they all do say pretty much that there needs to be more reviews done, none of the peer-reviewed research papers or articles can directly claim that acetaminophen and autism are directly linked. So, and in fact, we'll get into it in the next bullet point, but I think it's probably pretty safe to say that RFK Jr. and Trump should have had their ducks in a row before they made the claim. Sure, there's enough to caution, but to outright say don't take Tylenol when you're pregnant, I don't think the evidence is there yet. So we'll see. Let's keep going. Number 3, are there better alternatives than taking Tylenol when you're pregnant? Pregnant women need something, oftentimes for pain. They need something, if they get sick, they're going to need something to reduce fever. So if acetaminophen is not the answer, then what's the alternative? Research that I've done here so far suggests that there's not really a better alternative right now. So maybe there needs to be a new drug developed or a better way to deal with pain and fever for pregnant women. But currently, it looks like ibuprofen is not a great option, especially after like the first trimester. And aspirin is not a good solution. It can cause, bleeding. So there's just really, there's some that combine ibuprofen and acetaminophen, and it's just there's not a lot of options. Tylenol has been believed to be the go-to medicine for so long. I think something like 70 years, and I will say, though, I just after I paused to do a little more digging on that, I ended up opening up the actual study instead of just catching the cliff notes on it. The Mount Sinai study is the one that seemed to lean the most heavy. Had a dean of the school, kind of weighed in on it, and well, I'll just read a couple of clips from this. So, the study does explore biological mechanisms that could explain the association between acetaminophen use and disorders like autism, but it points to the fact that acetaminophen is known to cross the placental barrier, and it may trigger oxidative stress that was mentioned before, which can disrupt hormones and cause epigenetic changes that interfere with fetal brain development. While the study does not show that acetaminophen directly causes neurodevelopmental disorders, the research team's findings strengthen the evidence for a connection and raise concerns about current clinical practices. The researchers call for cautious, time-limited use of acetaminophen during pregnancy under medical supervision, updated guidelines to better balance the benefits and risks, and further research to confirm the findings. and identify safer alternatives for managing pain and fever in expectant mothers. Pregnant women should not stop taking medication without consulting their doctors. Untreated pain or fever can also harm the baby. So I'll probably point to this study again, but so that's interesting. I think out of all of them, especially since this is the most recent, their findings came out August of 2025, not long before Trump and RFK Jr. made that announcement. So they maybe took it one step too far by saying, I don't think it's good. You shouldn't take it. That's probably not the right approach, but Trump did throw out there unless medically necessary. So he left himself an out. He's great at that. But the this study specifically included information from a total of 46 studies incorporating data from more than 100,000 participants across multiple countries. And, this is a pretty in-depth study. This is that Mount Sinai. Let me go back to it. Mount Sinai Review is the name of it if anybody wants to look at it. I'll put the link to their page in the description if anybody wants to check that out for themselves. But this is probably the most compelling information that I've seen so far that would kind of support definitely using caution when taking Tylenol or any over-the-counter acetaminophen product while you're pregnant. So I've got three children myself. My wife took Tylenol or some version of it while she was pregnant. I'm blessed with happy, healthy children, so thank God for that. But if there is an increased risk, and especially if you have some, genetic markers, or sounds like there's some other underlying issues that can amplify the likelihood of passing on autism and ADHD to your child, that's, if you can bring that chance down by taking something different or dealing with pain and fever in a different way, then it's definitely worth the caution, I suppose. So let's just go on ahead. We'll just move right into the next bullet point. Is this a Big Pharma cover-up? Actually, I'm going to need to dig into that. I don't think it's a Big Pharma cover-up. Sounds like up until recently, all the data suggested that this is the safest drug to treat fever and pain, especially or even in pregnant women. But that Mount Sinai research is calling that into question, of course. Don't think it's a Big Pharma cover-up. The stuff I've went through so far doesn't make it seem that way. I know there has surely been some in the past. But I am curious, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm curious who actually makes acetaminophen, and if there's different versions of it for the brand Tylenol, as opposed to generic brands and products in other countries that use it. So I'm going to dig into that, and I'll be back. Big Pharma cover-up? I don't think so. Not on this one. Acetaminophen is FDA regulated, and the quality is the same whether it goes into Tylenol or a generic brand, like say a $4 bottle of Equate pain reliever from Walmart. The acetaminophen is the exact same quality as the product that goes into Tylenol. The differences are the inactive ingredients, such as like the coating, and the taste may be a little different. It might feel a little different going down. The branding, the bottle, the packaging, the delivery method. Some brands offer time release capsules that dissolve slower so that the pain relieving effects last longer, or you may get liquid gels that deliver it quicker, fast relief. So the, overall, though, the quality is the same no matter which brand you buy, which was nice to learn. So that's great. The other, I guess, thing, just to kind of touch back on it, the effects of not treating a fever or extreme pain that can cause stress are just as bad, if not worse, to a baby, an unborn baby, than to take the Tylenol or the acetaminophen product to relieve the fever or relieve the pain. Obviously, consult your physician, but the evidence shows that an untreated fever it creates more of a risk than, at least so far anyway. The studies show that the risk of an untreated fever is going to outweigh the risk of taking acetaminophen. So consult your doctor. I'm not a doctor, but that is, in short, what I've learned through the research here. That Mount Sinai review obviously raises some eyebrows. It's got some compelling evidence, some compelling data. They even admit they need to do some more reviewing, but 100,000 plus participants across multiple countries, 46 independent studies. It's the information that they provide about crossing the acetaminophen, crossing the barrier. What was it? The placental barrier. That's pretty compelling evidence. I think it's worth looking into other options. I think the medical industry needs to consider other options for pain relief and fever relief that will be completely safe to mothers. But in general, it seems pretty safe. I think more research needs to be done, but we're, like I said before, 70 plus years into it, and sure, autism has risen in the country and probably the world abroad, but there's so many things that can contribute to that. You look at the food dyes and the diet in general. A lot of it may or may not be related to pharmaceuticals, but to say that the total increase is completely related to one over-the-counter drug, I think that's a hard claim to make. So, yeah, talk to your doctor. They know best. They'll be able to give you the advice you need. All right, and the final bullet point is, are there any historical evidence for Big Pharma covering up drugs that they knew were bad for people, but they continued to push them, as well as just evidence that there were drugs that were thought to be okay for consumption that turned out to not be after years of prescriptions or over-the-counter use. So there's actually quite a few that come up. I'm just going to kind of rattle a few off. Some of these I'm probably going to get the pronunciation wrong, and I'm not really familiar with many of them. Some of them I am, but Looks like Thalidomide from the 1950s to the 1960s. It was uh, yeah, something from Germany, distributed globally as a wonder drug for morning sickness in pregnant women. Um, Looks like there's a little bit of a cover up despite early reports of peripheral neuropathy or nerve damage. The company suppressed the data, continued aggressive promotion. It's been linked to birth defects, limb malformations, and newborns. It wasn't widely acknowledged until 1961 after 10,000 cases worldwide. The outcome of it was banned in most countries by 1962 and led to stricter FDA regulations. Looks like they didn't even issue an apology to the world until 2012. So looks like it was in circulation for about 4 to 5 years before a full withdrawal. There's another one. It's a really long name. Looks like it's abbreviated as DES. And that was from the 1940s to the 1970s. Synthetic estrogen promoted by multiple pharma firms, including Eli Lilly, to prevent miscarriages or other pregnancy complications. It was prescribed to about 10 million women in the U.S. alone from the 1940s on. Despite studies in the 1950s showing it was ineffective and potentially harmful, companies lobbied against warnings and funded biased research. It was later linked to vaginal cancers, and looks like 1971. Also linked to infertility and breast cancer. The FDA ended up banning it in 1971, and there's still lawsuits that persist to this day. So, looks like the duration was about 30 years. It was in circulation for about 30 years before it was banned. That's pretty sad. So yeah, 10 years in. It took 10 years before the study started showing that it was ineffective and potentially harmful. And then a full 30 years before it was actually banned. That's crazy. Vioxx, 1999 to 2004. COX2 inhibitor for arthritis pain, generated $2.5 billion annually. Was considered a safe alternative to traditional NSAIDs. Looks like internal Merck studies from 2000 showed increased cardiovascular risks, heart attacks, strokes, but the company manipulated the data. They were ghostwriting favorable articles, pressured the FDA. Looks like it's linked to about 60,000 deaths, and they voluntarily withdraw in 2004. So it looks like Merck paid $4.5 billion in settlements, and a 2007 Senate investigation exposed the cover-up. It was in circulation for about 5 years before withdrawal. Oxycontin or oxycodone from the 1990s to the 2010s. That's one that got a lot of press, just with the pain reliever and addiction news coverage that was, I think, probably covered pretty well, that along with some other drugs. But Purdue Pharma extended a release opioid for chronic pain, aggressively marketed it as a non-addictive and safer alternative starting in 1996. Purdue downplayed addiction risks and sales, training, and funded biased studies despite internal knowledge of abuse potential from the 1990s. Widespread addiction and overdoses fueled the opioid crisis, with full admissions only after the lawsuits in the 2010s. FDA warnings strengthened in 2013. Purdue filed for bankruptcy in 2019. That was amid $8 billion in settlements over 5 100,000 U.S. overdose deaths linked partly to it. That was in circulation for 15 to 20 years before major reforms. I think you can actually still get oxycodone prescribed to you, but at least it comes with warnings and stuff. They know they treat it just like any other opioid now. So Fen-Phen, not familiar with that. It's a weight loss drug promoted by Wyeth, which is now Pfizer, as a safe appetite suppressant, prescribed to millions in 1996. Cover up. Early trials showed that the heart valve damage risks, but Wyeth suppressed the data and continued marketing. Heart disease, hypertension, and valvular complications were confirmed in 1997, leading to a recall. Wyeth paid $21 billion in settlements, and it was only in circulation for about a year before it was recalled. Zantac? I didn't even know that had a thing on it. 1980s to 2019. It's a top-selling heartburn drug used by hundreds of millions since 1983. Cover-up was delayed. Independent tests in 2019 revealed NDMA, a carcinogen. Well, you know what I'm saying. Contamination, but 1980s suggested instability. It was recalled globally in 2020. Ongoing lawsuits claim cancers valued at $1 billion plus annually at its peak. So 35 years before recall. I think I've taken Zantac. I think I used to have a bottle of that. That's kind of concerning. Didn't realize that was a thing. Anyway, so yeah, there's lots of examples of medications in the past that were used and covered up even after they learned that there was potential risks. So definitely keep your eye on this acetaminophen thing, because who knows where it's going to go. Maybe there'll be some data that confirms the issues, or maybe they'll determine that it's all just not directly linked to it. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a like, and if you want to subscribe, I plan on making more videos. This is kind of it's not really a conspiracy yet, but I definitely see it becoming one. They're not all going to be about pharmaceuticals and current events. Some of the videos are going to be more related to history and Earth's prehistory, things like that. But I just saw that this is an emerging topic and wanted to get this out there. Thanks.